We'd like to call the regular meeting of City Council for Monday, June 11th to order. Our first order of business, we want to welcome the delegation and guests here this morning with us. And our first agenda item this morning is delegations 2.1. We have our distinguished MLA, Mr. Mike Bernier, is in attendance to give us an update on what's going on and what's done. And so it's a pleasure to have you in and see you again and welcome you.
Good morning, Your Worship. Good morning, councillors. How are you doing? It's great to be here. I know it's been a little while since I've been here. We've had our spring session, so it's good to be back home, back in the riding. Been away for the most part since February, and had a busy session down there. I know most of you I've spoken with numerous times throughout that session, and we've had updates and questions on certain things. Just going to highlight a few things I feel that are important from my end to bring to council's attention, and then leave some time, Your Worship, for questions, whatever you see fit. First of all, I want to thank council and mayor specifically. We've been working really closely with Minister Dix, the new government, on the continuation around with Northern Health on the Dawson Creek Hospital. So just want to say things are still moving along well there. Of course, we've been pushing the new government to continue on with the commitments that the previous government and that I had made, and so far we're having very good news around that. So we'll see how that transcends over the next little while. But again, just want to thank everyone for the partnership on that, because I think it's important for the entire South Peace and the region, and we need to be working collectively in order to get projects like that across the finish line. Also want to just thank you for the work you're doing and the stress that you're going through around Rotary Lake. And I know through all the times that when I was mayor and on council for all the years too, and the work for Rotary Lake, what it means to the community and the decisions that you have to make. I have not, as your MLA, done anything publicly, and I have not spoken officially with the government as I'm waiting for your direction. I want to make sure we're on the same page, whatever you decide as a council, and we'll work together on that. I do know that the Northern Health has contacted the Ministry of Health, but the minister himself, when I casually talk with him in the hallway, it's not on his radar at this time on the closure order. And so it's one of the things that I had talked to the mayor about. I have not made any formal request to the government because I did not want to bring it to the premier's or the minister's desk at this time until you knew what you want to do. I think we have to be united on that one for whatever the decisions are. A couple of exciting things I would say is we're still continuing on with 8th Street Bridge, the replacement, the last bottleneck I'd say on Dawson Creek within the community. Ministry of Transportation is still working closely with the city to remove the multi-plates there and actually put in a span bridge to try to avoid any future flooding. Of course, there's a lot of engineering that needs to be done to figure out what that'll mean for flow for downstream. And speaking of downstream, ministry, even though it's been in a lot of years, and I know Councillor Javatkoff has spoken to me many times on this one, is Snake Pit Road. And that one there is still in the works, hopefully going to tender here really soon on straightening that out and putting in a proper bridge. Of course, it's a one-lane temporary right now, but that one's still in the works. A couple things from the provincial level to bring to your attention too, and I know some of them you are already aware of. One, chambers of commerce around the province and local and businesses have been meeting with me around the employer's health tax. Just want to flag that because with the new government's decision around putting an employer's health tax and removing MSP and moving it into a different tax system, you're going to have, especially up in this region, in areas where you don't have as many unionized workforce or people covered under a collective agreement where MSP might be paid, it's going to be a 100% hit to them. So I know some of the local construction companies have met with me. They're anywhere between $150,000 to $200,000 to their bottom line a year. Some of these companies have told me smaller business are going to be having a big hit as well. The reason why that one concerns me, of course, is our proximity to Alberta and the competitiveness that we're already facing. when you start adding a couple of $100,000 to the bottom line of a business here who's already trying to compete with a business 10 miles away, who doesn't have to pay the provincial taxes now and employer health tax as well, which is almost 2% of your total payroll. That's a big hit for some companies. So I just want to flag that because I know the Chamber of Commerce and businesses are really starting to speak out against that because of the cost that it's going to accrue to them. Just something to flag. Look at a company like McDonald's, for instance, or A&W. It could cost them, for a McDonald's franchise for up in the north here, it's going to cost him almost $250,000 for something that he's never had to pay before, where he's got very limited opportunity to recoup those costs. And interestingly, it's covering people who, for the most part, never had to pay MSP before either. So it's really a hit that businesses are starting to talk about. The speculation tax is a big one. We won't have that as much of an issue up here. I have heard from some locals who are fortunate enough to own a place, maybe a secondary home down in Kelowna or down in Vancouver, who are going to have to pay a new speculation tax if you have a secondary home. So that one there is not going to be as much of an issue for us up here, I don't think, but there are some people affected. Another one from a local business perspective, just want to flag for you, is the dual agency real estate regulations that are being changed. Our local realtors in the province is mostly going to affect smaller communities, I feel, where you have this double-ended dual agency where I won't get into the details of it, but really what it means is that a lot of people, if they have a relationship with a purchaser or seller, they can't do both ends now. So in a small community like Tumbler Ridge, Chetwynd, and even here in Dawson Creek, where people have established relationships over the years in order to list a house and then possibly even sell it to people they know, that's really restricted now. And it's going to cost possibly some jobs and a lot of money for our real estate groups. So just want to flag that. Last one I'll bring up, and this is the big one that we're hearing around the province right now, is the referendum on proportional representation. So this is one that I'm encouraging everybody. You've got to get out, people have got to get out and ask questions and hear what's going on about this. The reason why I've been very vocal and speaking against this is not so much the referendum. We had a referendum in 2005, 2009. Citizens Assembly was put together to actually formulate those questions. Took about 2.5 years. Elections BC was part of that process, where they actually put maps forward and said, if you vote in favor of this referendum, this is what it'll mean. Here's what the ridings will look like. Citizens Assembly of private citizens actually are the ones who put the questions together. This time it's been done completely political in the back. And so that's one of the things that really makes me nervous. People are going to be voting on something where the government has said, don't worry, we'll tell you afterwards what it means. And so you're going to see me out there probably quite vocal about this. And I'm not trying to make this, although it'll appear this way, it's not about BC Liberals, NDP, Greens. It's not about the policy. It's about provincial democratic system to make sure that people have not only a say, but for rural British Columbia, that we don't lose our representation. Under only one of the PR options, because two of them have never been tried anywhere and used anywhere in the world before, so it's hard to explain what they even are. But under an MMP situation, what ends up happening now is during your elections, you have party lists. So the actual parties, the BC Liberals, NDP, Greens, actually have people's names on a list, and you vote for the parties more than individuals. And if they put in zones, you might only vote in half of the MLAs, and the rest are appointed by the parties based on the popular vote. So you have no guarantee who your MLA will be. You don't get to necessarily vote for them. For me, for rural BC, I think that's huge. That's a huge loss for rural BC. Maybe in the lower mainland, when most of them could bump into their MLA and not even know who they are, and probably never even knew when they checked the box who that person was. For smaller communities in rural BC, that's a huge part of our democratic system, is the accountability and knowing who your MLA is, knowing what they stand for, and then deciding whether you vote for them or not. So over the next couple of months, there's going to be a lot of groups. Of course, you've got the chambers, got business communities around the province are very vocal right now against not so much the referendum, but switching off the system to a PR system where we lose some of our democratic system and more of the accountability and uncertainty that it brings. So you will start hearing a lot of people talking about that on both sides, I'm sure, pro and con on different sides. So I just want to flag that because that's what's going to be probably busy over the summer. Won't be back in Victoria officially until October if the new government calls the fall sitting. That doesn't hurt my feelings, Your Worship. Last year I did 178 flights to and from the region to Victoria, so it'll be nice to be home for a month or two and working in the region. And again, just want to thank all of Council for the work you do. I know it's coming up to an election year. Some of you might not run again, so thank you for the work that you've done, the commitment you've had to the community and to the region, and those decide to run again. Best of luck to you. I thought maybe after you did it for a little while you'd change your mind, but best of luck anyway going forward. And Your Worship, as always, thank you for the relationship. It sure helps when we're trying to move things forward.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, and we really appreciate you coming in today and giving us an update on the initiatives. And as I say, you mentioned out of the gate the hospital, and that's been a big item for us, and we're really excited about hopefully getting this thing moved across the finish line with working with you, and appreciate the invitation to meet with you and the Minister a month or so ago, and very optimistic. Questions for MLA Bernier? Councillor Javeka?
So do you have anything firm on schedule for replacing the bridges or the 8th Street and Snake Pit?
Well, some of it I have to wait, in all due respect to the new government and the minister, who will probably put out official announcements. But what I can say is that it's no surprise that Snake Pit is going to be starting to be worked on because there's tenders that are going out. That one there will take, just for yourselves and for the public too, it will take a couple of years. Because of the ravine aspect there, and to straighten it out, there's going to have to be a lot of bed loading taking place. They'll have to move a lot of fill there, let it sit for a year to help compact the area before they do too much work. But the main thing is it's going to be starting. As you know, the trucking groups have been wanting that straightened for safety reasons to be able to access onto the dangerous goods route a little easier off the Spirit Highway, and so that's good to see. The 8th Street, as your CAO would know, 8th Street's been taking a little longer than planned, mostly because we have to make sure we get it right with the city having water and sewer that's running on top of the multi-plate under the road. The engineering work has to be done to decide how we will be able to have that continue to flow, no pun intended, through that area. But there's also some work, widening and some park access that might need to be worked on with the city. I'm assuming you'll have a bylaw that you'll have to work on that. And so that there, I'm told, towards the end of this year, we'll have a better idea around tendering. Timelines, I believe, are still on for construction in 2019, finishing 20.
Right on.
Good. Anything further? Mike, thanks so much. We really appreciate you seeing you here this morning, and appreciate you coming in and giving us an update.
Good to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Next delegation this morning, we have Amanda Neufeld and Melina Sweezy from our Ken Bork Aquatic Center in attendance regarding Swim to Survive Day proclamation. So first we'll get, if we can, we'll come up and we'll read the proclamation, and then, or do you guys want to do your presentation first? But it
No,
works.
you go ahead, sir.
So you guys come on up and we're going to read the proclamation, and yeah, yeah, you get to do that. Thanks for coming in this morning.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Whereas the Life Saving Society is a national charitable organization working to prevent drowning and reduce water-related injury through our training programs, water-smart public education, drowning research, and aquatic safety standards. And whereas the majority of people who drown had no intention of going into the water, for swimmers and non-swimmers alike, immersion is sudden, unexpected, and often silent. And whereas International Life Saving Federation research findings from around the world offer clear evidence that teaching the survival swimming skills taught in Swim to Survive decreases drowning, potentially reducing the mortality and morbidity from aquatic incidents by 50%. And whereas Swim to Survive, the Society gives all grade 3 and 7s the opportunity to learn self-rescue skills. This program is taking place across the country to focus media and community attention on the skills necessary to survive an unexpected fall into deep water. Now therefore, I do hereby proclaim June 21st, 2018 as Swim to Survive Day in Dawson Creek. So there you are. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very
and,
much. Thank you.
Please, the floor is yours, and I know you've got some stuff to inform us.
So we invited grades 3 and 7 the opportunity to learn self-rescue skills. The 3 skills that we're going to teach is to orientate yourself at the surface after an unexpected entry, support yourself at the surface so you can regain control of your breathing if you fall into cold water, and swim to safety a 3 to 15 meter distance.
We have right now, we have 298 children confirmed from Dawson Creek schools, so we're very happy with the amount of response we got from the schools. We're holding it 12-1. We've offered it free to the schools. They are paying for their own busing and transportation, so we're very excited to have this and to teach our children to be more safe around the water. We only have less than 2% of children actually drown in a guarded facility, but in a unguarded facility, we're the second leading cause of death in Canada with our lakes, the amount of lakes. Ontario and BC being the highest in the province. So we're hoping that with this education and it being a national rate across Canada, that we're all participating. We're hopefully going to get, they're hoping up to 1 million children. I don't know how many will be total. It'll be on the life-saving website when we're all done and get our numbers in. But we're happy that we're almost 300 in Dawson Creek and not everybody's finalized their confirmation.
Great job. Great job. Any questions? Councillor Jeveka?
So is it just for grade 3s and grade 7s, or is it from grade 3 to grade 7?
Grade 3 to grade 7.
And we even have some split classes coming, so we've opened it up. Devereaux requested that their entire school comes in, so we've allowed that. So even though it was geared for grade 3s and 7s, because our community is so small and all children impacted by teaching safety to the children, maybe they'll pass that along to their parents, we opened it up.
I think it's a great program. Some of us back in the day, we didn't have those kind of programs, and we never did learn to swim. Now, some of us are pretty afraid of water.
Well, come on down and we'll teach you how to swim.
Great job. Thank you so much for coming in this morning. It's a pleasure to have you here. And again, as Councillor Jeveka said, great program, and really appreciate the initiative of you guys getting it out to our kids and helping them become waterproof.
We'll check Recreation website, check our Facebook for the pool, and we did get everybody to sign model release forms, so we're hopefully going to get some pictures up there of the kids having fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next delegation this morning is 2.3. We have Pamela Morris from the Dawson Creek Municipal Public Library, Andrew Holt from Northern Toy Box, and Michelle Mobley from the Dawson Creek Literacy Society are in attendance to present a plan on community library boxes and requesting some permission. So welcome, you guys. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
And you have
Our delegation got bigger.
the delegation have 10 minutes to present your overview, so the floor is yours.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, councillors, and city administration, I'd like to present our project to you. Pamela Morris from the library, Megan Longley from the art gallery and the student art program, Michelle Mobley from Dawson Creek Literacy, and not today, Nicole Palfy wasn't able to come from the Dawson Creek Mirror.
All me now. So what we're proposing is a community library boxes. And what we want to do, the Mirror donated some retired newspaper boxes to Andrew, and Andrew approached me about starting these library boxes. So what we propose to do is put them on city property in 3 or 4 different places around town and fill them with donated books that come to the library on a regular basis. We get, on a weekly basis, 3 or 4 days a week, we get 2 or 3 boxes of books that people are donating, getting rid of it, moving, whatever. So we've always got a large amount of boxes of books coming in. So we thought we would fill them with these books and people could just come and take them whenever they like. We were thinking about doing a take one, leave one, but we were a little concerned about what would be left in the boxes. So we're going to try it just as a take one or 2 at a time kind of thing and see how that goes. We're proposing that they be one outside the library, maybe along the walking path, maybe on our pad that we have where we have a bench, one outside Andrew's store, one at the NAR Park, the art gallery area, and then one outside Literacy Now, or Literacy Society downtown. And we would maintain the boxes, check them probably on every 2 or 3 days just to see, make sure that what's in there is supposed to be in there and that we can refill them. That would either be library staff doing that, and our partners are also willing to take that on as well. I think Michelle has donations of books as well. Andrew's got some books he'd like to put in there. So that's our proposal. What we'd really like to know is whether we're allowed to do that on city property and how they would need to be,
Mounted.
or
Secured.
And we'd want to only have them summertime, spring, summer, fall, and then remove them in the winter.
Good.
So
Good.
I think you'd like that idea.
Thank you. Questions for the delegation? Councillor Schumann.
I have no questions, but I can tell you that I like that idea.
Good.
And Councillor Parslow.
So these 4 donated boxes, are they the same ones that near where I live, where the Mirror newspapers are currently stacked inside? The reason I'm asking this is I would think they're totally, what's near my home is totally unsuitable, I would think, for displaying books. In other communities that have this sort of thing, such as Smithers, you can clearly see the titles. There's a nice array. It's like a mini bookshelf. So I'm concerned about ease of viewing of the books, if you like. If my guess is correct that you're using surplus.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can answer that. Yeah. So we went and sourced the boxes from the Mirror, and Nicole let us choose our pick. All 4 are in good condition. They'll be painted, and through the art gallery and the youth program, they'll be painted quite colorfully and tastefully. We have some examples here of what's been done in other cities, but they'll be noticed. Karen at the Agro Center has also provided us with a form where Co-op provides funding for community art projects, and we haven't filled out the form yet, but we're fairly confident that the proper paint and the proper weatherproof paint will be chosen so that they won't degrade. And because they'll be used seasonally for 4 months, you don't have to worry about winter deterioration. The books will be displayed. There is a rack as you open the door, like a type of oven or barbecue rack, that the books can be laid upon so that they're seen through the glass or acrylic window.
Okay.
Want me to come closer to you?
No, it's okay. So you can see the titles. So just
Yeah.
If you open it up,
Right.
you'll be able to see. I think that it will be good too in terms of having it closed for like flora and fauna, weather. I think it's good that there's a reason that you could open and close. 'Cause, yeah,
They're going to be sealed.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Other questions? So thank you guys so much for coming forward with a really innovative, creative idea for getting and moving literacy and reading out into the community. And so we'll bring it back. It comes back under Mayor's business, and Council will deal with the request at that time and give you the decision.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in. Next item, delegation this morning, 2.4. We have Stephanie Goody and Tina Henderson from the Canadian Union of Public Employees in attendance this morning for requesting support for a Labor Day celebration. Good morning, Stephanie.
Good morning.
You're flying solo?
Yep.
Your partner,
Just me today.
your
Yeah.
partner didn't come with you?
No, she's pretty busy today, so just me.
No problem. Welcome.
So good morning, everybody. You should have in your packages there my local QB2 403. We're hoping to put together an event for Labor Day this year. So on September 3rd, which is sort of the unofficial last day of summer before kids are going back to school, we're hoping to have it in the Kin Park Bowl across from the library, get some entertainment in there, some food trucks, have some various nonprofits and things have tables there, hoping to get maybe this water slide we've heard about, bouncy castles, and have it as low barrier as possible. So it's for the entire community. Thanks.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. So questions for Stephanie? Anyone?
Excellent idea.
Thank you.
So thank you. We'll absolutely get it back under mayor's business later in the agenda, and council will deal with the request, and we'll advise you of their decision.
Terrific. Thank
Thanks,
you very
Stephanie.
much.
Thank you. 2.5 for this morning, we have Larry Moody and Joe Hauber from the Rotary Club in attendance regarding a request for a letter of support for Rotary Lake.
Good morning, Evan.
Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome.
Good morning, Mayor.
And the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes to do your presentation.
So the first thing I would like to do is apologize for getting this letter out awfully late. It should have been out earlier in the week, but we wanted to make sure that we had it right. So after the public meeting on Rotary Lake, it was three things that come across quite clear there, and that was that people wanted Rotary Lake opened in some way, they wanted it free, and they wanted it that was something that teenagers would also go to. So with that in mind, we have drawn up this letter. We want to send it off to the Premier and to the Health Minister to get something moving, get something happening. So what we're here for today is to ask Mayor and Council for a letter of support to go along with this. Because we believe that it would have a lot more weight in Victoria if we have the entire council behind us. So that's what we're here for today. That's about it.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Councillor Javekov.
I'd just like to compliment the Rotary Club for taking this project on. I know when I was involved in Rotary years ago, it was one of the things that we're quite proud of as an accomplishment in the community. So I think it's a very worthwhile project, and it's good to see that there's still continuing pride in Rotary Lake.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, so thank you. We'll, process is we bring it back under mayor's business, and council will provide the direction there and vote on it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That was handed out. We handed it out. So council, it didn't get part of the, we just got it on Friday. So.
Well, I don't have one.
Next delegation, 2.6. We have Jerry and Peggy Bergeron, Anna Comer, Randy Haney, Andrew Hall, Dave Shoemaker, Brianna Hall, and Helen Ezard, residents of Dawson Creek in attendance regarding flood mitigation petition.
Good morning.
So good morning, you guys. Welcome. Council's got your presentation and material as part of their delegation or part of their agenda package. So thank you for coming this morning, and floor is yours. You have 10 minutes, and then we'll proceed.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think I'll just start by introducing myself. My name is Anna Comer. I actually helped write the petition, and the petition is presented on behalf of David Shoemaker, Andrew Hall, Sabrina Bergeron, Jerry and Peggy Bergeron, Ross and Jean Harcourt, Debbie Pittman, Helen and Wayne Ezard, Brianna Hall, and Randy Haney. So it is an initiative to replace the 102nd Avenue culverts with a bridge. So I'll just take a minute and read the letter for you and everyone else. So it is imperative to reduce the flood risk that home and business owners surrounding the 17th Street Bridge and 102nd Avenue culverts face every year. As Dawson Creek residents, we understand that we cannot eliminate the risk of flooding within our city. However, steps can and need to be taken to drastically reduce the risks of another devastating flood. It is evident that the 102nd Avenue culverts are not designed to hold the volume of water that is demanded of them. Therefore, we are petitioning the City of Dawson Creek to take swift action and replace the 102nd Avenue culverts with a bridge. So we do acknowledge the time needed to implement infrastructure, and we do recognize that the city has taken some steps to help us with this because of the 10th Street and 15th Street Bridge. But this petition notes that action needs to be taken to mitigate the risks of flooding this year, and that $300,000 should not have been taken from the Dawson Creek's Flood Mitigation Fund and given to the Collins Exhibition Park for the demolition of their buildings, when infrastructure critical to reducing flood risk remains unattended to. And when we say that, we are also wanting to make sure you know that we are huge supporters of our fall fair, and we don't want to come across that we're not. So we do support the fall fair. So the residents and business owners in this area can no longer afford to face the ongoing cost, stress, and danger associated with continuous flooding. So Mayor Bumstead stated in 2017 that the city's focus is on flood-proofing its infrastructure. But seeing the reallocation of flood mitigation funds to the Collins Exhibition Park's demolition raises serious concerns among the residents and business owners. The City of Dawson Creek very much needs to prioritize the citizens' safety from further flood damage. Taking these designated funds devalues the damage and loss residents, homeowners, and business owners have suffered. In addition, it negatively impacts the community's need for assistance from the provincial government to flood-proof the community. As well, this action suggests to insurance companies that the City of Dawson Creek feels that they have completed their responsibility of flood mitigation. In fact, specific insurance companies have informed customers that they will no longer be offering flood insurance to those in the described area until the city takes steps towards reducing the flood risk on 17th Street and 102nd Avenue. So in conclusion, this petition requests that the city prioritize and take swift action towards the replacement of the 102nd Avenue culverts with a bridge. As citizens of Dawson Creek, we are also requesting an assurance from the City of Dawson Creek that the flood mitigation funds be utilized solely for improving, repairing, adding, or replacing infrastructure and safeguards needed to minimize flood risk, as well as an assurance from the City of Dawson Creek that they will continue to aggressively pursue the Ministry of Transport for the proposed bridge on 8th Street. So that was our letter. Thank you. And then I think from now I'll have questions to all of them and any concerns they have brought up.
Yeah, sure.
So
as one directly affected by the flood, as much as it was fun to float up and down the creek in a boat and go around the shop and all that, the aftermath was of course less fun, and we've been dealing with it for 2 years ever since. And even this year, I spent 3 days and $3,000 just of my own money sandbagging the building because the water, as you know, came over 17th Street. Now I know you've addressed 15th and 8th is going to be done, and 10th. And so that's fantastic, and we appreciate that in every sense of that. And we also know that things don't happen overnight, that you're dependent on government funding as well from the province and so on. So we're not trying to be unreasonable. We just want City Council to know that, you know, I mean, we got 100 and some signatures in what, 2 hours?
we got 101 signature in a matter of, I think, 2.5 hours, and there was only one canvasser
Yeah, right.
that
So
got the signatures.
it was, so there's a lot of support for that to happen, and I think that's what everyone agrees on, that it needs to happen, right? And the infrastructure is so important, and it's part of why we're here. It's part of why the city is here as an organization. So we just want to reiterate our support and our desire to see this done, and offer also anything that we can do from our end, either put forward petitions to the province or assist the city in any way, that we can help move this forward so that next year some of us don't have to sandbag our business
homes.
Yeah. I'll get a bigger boat next time. So, like I said, yeah, right. But it does affect our bottom lines, right? The fact of the matter is, it's serious business, and we lost 23 welders in that flood. We lost several forklifts in that flood. We lost all of our office equipment. It took us 2 months to put our papers all back together because everything that was at the 2-foot level was flooded in. So it's actually a really serious deal for us. And the recovery is long from something like that. But I mean, I think you already know that. We're just here again to let everyone know that it is important today as much as it was 2 years ago. And as much as it's fun to be on TV, we'd rather not be on in that way kind of thing in a couple years again. I think, yeah, it's a great city. We're lucky to have the creek, but a culvert just doesn't really cut it, as we all know, right? We were lucky this year because it melted slow enough, even though we had a lot of snow. But we could have less snow and a faster melt, and we would have it worse off, I think. And we've all seen that, right? So that's kind of it. We just want to know also if council can give some assurances that something is being moved forward in that direction. I think we're all going to be quite happy.
Sure.
So
Thank you. Thank you, Randy, and thank you everybody for coming. So questions for the delegation? Anyone? So, really I want to kind of give a bit of an overview of what council is doing and are planning and have underway, just because I don't think we want the optics that we're not doing anything about it. So this past year, we did engage with a flood mitigation plan, and we were able to leverage some money to be able to put a flood mitigation plan in place. And that flood mitigation plan is really important for us to be able to understand the impacts and the implications of doing any kind of work to the infrastructure. What does it do to the overall impacts throughout the creek, throughout the flow of the creek? And so that's one bit of work that we're just in the final stages of awaiting the report. And so once we have that, it gives us an opportunity to understand the overall infrastructure. And as you mentioned, the 15th Street Bridge was replaced as a result of the flood in 2016. And the 10th Street Bridge had to be replaced, not because of the flood, but because of just sheer end of life. Province is going to do 8th Street. Changing the flow of the creek and changing the dynamics of it, we need to understand that in terms of what it does and how it impacts it. So that flood mitigation plan will hopefully give council that information in terms of changing the flow, what does it do and what do we need to do to enhance it. We have engaged the province. I was in Victoria a month and a half ago, met with the Minister of Forest Lands, Natural Resource Operations. We talked about flood mitigation for the whole region, not only for our communities, but for the region. We've engaged with the federal government in terms of trying to ensure that we try to leverage that federal funding that's available for infrastructure grants for exactly this purpose. So we are moving down that road, but the first piece that we need to get is this whole flood mitigation plan to be able to understand what it is. And I think you guys say it in your letter, you're never going to eliminate the risk. In the event in 16, when you have 120 millimeters of rain in a 24-hour period, it's going to flood. Doesn't matter whether you had the creek free flowing, it's probably going to flood. So you're never going to eliminate risk. What you've got to do is we got to try to plan what's the method for us to reduce and minimize the impacts of risk during normal flows. And I think that's kind of the process that we're going to undergo. But I don't think anybody should be under the perception that whatever you do, whether you put bridges in or whatever, it's going to eliminate the flood risk. Because significant events like 17, like 2011, 2001, those are significant risk events that are probably going to flood no matter what. It just depends on the severity. So we are doing some things, and I just want to kind of give you a little bit of that background of what council is doing. Because we aren't sitting on our hands not doing anything, because we get that, and engineering and administration are through that process dealing with it to ensure that we put the proper planning and mechanisms in place to ensure we do the things that are the best to minimize the risk of flooding for you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Javekpa?
I guess I recognize that crossing there is probably one of the last sort of impediments to free flowing the water through the city. And you're talking about swift action. Obviously our budgets are done for this year and there's some minor flexibility, but I would think a bridge in that location is going to be something over $1 million. So the swift action, I mean, what are you expecting? Like,
I think the only reasonable thing one can expect is just to have preparation. As this year, the pumps were there, right, which was helpful, and that may have alleviated to the point where it was acceptable for this year. But again, if we have a big melt and a fast melt with even less snow, chances are it's going to exceed that. So, you know, that might require something a little more serious to get. You might have to ditch that through, for example. Yeah. And if so, engineering knew what was there so that you actually could do that, well, that would be something. And I realize that's not exactly an easy thing to do because you've got all the downstream problems and everything. So if there's a plan in place, that's good enough, you know, just so that everything doesn't like instantly the flood parks, right? The park floods, pardon me. The culverts are too. If you go there, you'll see that the water's 3 to 4 feet lower on one side than it is on the other side. Everybody knows that things are just displaced in the wrong way, and the capacity is just not there. So if there's a plan in place, I think obviously no bridge is going to get built this year. If we're really lucky, we can perhaps working together get something happening next year. That would be really nice, you know. But some kind of a plan to mitigate a potential flood next spring, and hopefully that never happens. But you know, as I'm sure Kevin and everybody knows, it takes time to organize everything in advance, or at last minute. It might be too late. So if that kind of a thing can be done, I think everyone's going to be fairly content.
The big push right now to me is for us to get the provincial and federal government in. We got to find out about that grant, infrastructure grant money that's available to be able to help expedite it. And so once we get the flood mitigation plan, then we can understand that in terms of what's the best decisions for infrastructure at 17th and 102nd Avenue, and then plan it together. And hopefully we have the federal funding available in place and provincially to be able to then put that plan in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, anything we can do to help.
So, as I said, I've reached out to the federal government. We are planning to meet with the federal minister as soon as we can get to him within hopefully the next month or two, because they do have some grant money for emergency like floods. And so we're going to do our best, and I've engaged with Bob Zimmer to help me facilitate that. So we are working away at that. So, and also once we get the flood mitigation plan and that report, we'll certainly call a public meeting for you guys so that we can give you the kind of the overview of that information that we get from that flood mitigation plan to understand the implications of it. And we'll make sure to call a public meeting for that exact purpose.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in.
Appreciate your time.
Appreciate it.
Right.
So that ends our, do you want to have, oh, we've only been going 45 minutes. We're good. New councillor business. Item 3, Councillor McFadden.
Good morning, Your Worship. Just a couple of things. I recently attended the convocation at Northern Lights College. I think there was 44 students received their diplomas, so I was happy to attend and brought them greetings and congratulations from yourself and council. And a couple of weeks ago, COPA, the Canadian Owners and Pilots Association, had a little 2-day get-together at the airport, and they were giving the kids of the community free rides, and then they had a barbecue. I think there was 90 kids signed up and were able to go out and take a spin around the area with some of the local pilots. And last week I attended a BC Transit symposium in Parksville, and I learned about some of the strides they're making in terms of electric buses and liquid natural gas buses. So they're doing everything they can to get away from the old diesel, and they're making great strides. And then Saturday I went to the South Peace High School production of The Little Mermaid. It's extremely well done, and hats off to all the students and staff at South Peace. It was a great performance. Thank you.
Thank you for attending the convocation ceremonies for me. I appreciate that. You're welcome. Another new councillor business, Councillor Rogers and Councillor Wilbur.
Yeah, I recently talked to Pat O'Reilly up at the Nordic Ski Park. Their trails upgrade and culverts will be completed by roughly the end of June, and that'll allow them to go ahead with their ski playground. We had already done council had already endorsed that. They were just trying to get in on the deadline, but they kind of got held up with the road bans and with the recent rains that we had slowing their project down anyways. But during the conversation with Kathy Clement, because she's done a lot of work on all of this, I guess they're reaching out to the community to help support that ski playground. So if there's anybody that would like to donate to that cause, or even just buy a membership for the Nordic Valley, that always helps them.
Okay.
And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilbur.
Thank you. So yeah, I feel much like everyone else. I've been very busy lately, but I did attend Victoria with the table officers of NCLGA, and one of the issues we did talk to all of the ministers about, as well as the opposition. We met with all of our northern MLAs in the Green Caucus, was the Northern Caribou, the Southern Caribou issue. So a lot of the resolutions that came out of this past AGM were discussed. It was a very, very full day, and I know our new president will have some updates for all of its members. But one of the issues that did come forward out of the South Peace in our regional district was the Southern Caribou. So it was addressed, and we did have some great conversations there. As well, I was invited to, like I think everyone, and was able to attend the camp day at Timmy's. And I know MLA Bernier was there, our fire department was there, and our apologies to anyone who was messed up in the drive-through, but they only give us a 1-hour shift, so I don't think it was too bad. But thank you to Jillian and Lyle again for inviting us. And again, I had the opportunity to cook at the Access Awareness Barbecue. I am not sure how many burgers I put through, but let me tell you, I smelled like one by the time I got home. But it was well attended. The weather was good for us, and it was just nice to see everyone in the community come out and celebrate accessibility. And yeah, oh, and as well, I just attended the Family Expo, which was hosted by Little's Boutique in Dawson Creek, one of our downtown stores. There was about 600 people that came through, and it was just a really great opportunity for community services, as well as Love Dawson Creek and Sustainable Dawson Creek, to be down there. We talked about our curbside recycling program with many, many people, and just what's coming up this summer that the city has to offer through Parks and Rec. So lots of young families. It was great to see them, and we got a lot of information out there. So it's a great weekend. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Partlow.
After the public meeting concerning Rotary Lake, and yes, this was not pre-planned, I was in the Lower Mainland for some time, and used that opportunity in three municipalities, Abbotsford, Langley and Surrey. I viewed and engaged with some people who are users and municipal people about the operation of their swimming pools in public parks. I did send council, and I believe I sent staff, a photo from the Abbotsford setup in Mill Park, a beautiful park. And I've come to the conclusion that even thinking about operating a swimming pool, replacing the lake with a swimming pool, is just a non-starter. I noticed that each swimming pool is surrounded by, I'm guessing that I didn't get a tape measure out, a 12-foot fence, which you imagine steel pipes and bent over outwards, so the whole ambience of it makes it, de facto, those swimming pools are separate, isolated structures, secure from outside infiltration, just like any other swimming pool is indoors. So it's nice swimming outside, but it's really an enclosed area. And the cost of operation, etc., cost of entry. In Surrey, it's free. The others, it's a minimal charge, but I can imagine every time a kid wants to go in, whether they go into a lake, they just walk in. No, they'd have to go through the turnstile and pay their $2. It's just a not operate. It's the comments at that public meeting about swimming pool stuff. I've come to the firm conclusion it's just not sensible. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from Councillor Business? Thank you. So we'll move now to our minutes of our regular meeting of Council for May 28th for adoption. Moved Councillor Schumann, seconded Councillor Dubecka. Any errors or omissions in the minutes? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Any business arising out of the minutes? Correspondence is our next item. 6.1, we have an invoice from the FCM regarding voluntary contribution to a special advisory fund. Councillor Parslow?
I move that we make our contribution. We are beneficiaries of it, so I'm in support of it.
Thank you. Seconded Councillor Schumann. Discussion. Councillor Javetkov?
I'm not in favor of it. We already pay for a membership there, and I think that's enough. Another $1,000 or whatever is not necessary.
Councillor McFadden?
How are we a beneficiary of this particular fund?
Duncan?
So, through your worship, we do have a membership with FCM. This is an addition, and it's an advocacy fund. And I believe the wording they use is to propel municipal priorities onto the national agenda like never before, I think, is the language they've used. So essentially, it's taking any issues, national, that affect municipalities and kind of uniting that voice and bringing that forward.
My understanding is, we're beneficiaries of the infrastructure funds that we make application for, and it's bringing to the federal government's attention the need for transit and other infrastructure that is part of their work. But I believe there was heightened working at the last election, and we need to continue that. So I'm saying we're beneficiaries because we do receive some infrastructure funding from the federal government.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? You ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 6.2, we have a letter from Lynn Embry-Williams, Executive Director of Woodworks BC, regarding Community Recognition Awards call for nominations. Councillor Wilbur.
I move that we receive for information.
Seconded Councillor Schumann. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 6.3, we have a letter from Deborah Jones Middleton, Protective Services Manager from the Peace River Regional District, regarding a letter from Firewise Consulting Emergency Management Road Rescue Services Review. Duncan, can you give us a little bit of this before?
Sure. So through your worship, the Firewise Consulting Group has been hired by the Fire Chiefs Association to review that pre-ambulatory care, that road safety extraction, that portion of it. I would recommend that if we are going to reply to this, that we reply directly, not through the RD, and just CC the RD. One of our big concerns through motor vehicle incidents and response is that we do subsidize that. We do not recover full cost. In 2017, we subsidized to the tune of about $37,000. 2016, it was about $16,000. 2015, 14,000, 2014, 25,000. So we are subsidizing that cost. And so yeah, our recommendation would be that we do send our response, and we can put something together regarding costs. If there's any other areas that council would like us to address, we could also include that.
Yeah. So I'm looking for, yeah, so go ahead, Councillor Jackman.
So, this initiative here, obviously they've hired a consultant, this fire service outfit out of the States. Is the intent to try and get some kind of formal approach provincially through the regional districts? Is that what it's about? Because, I mean, that would be you know, a huge benefit to us if the regional district took this on, because really what it is, it's a provincial service that we provide out of a moral responsibility at the cost of the local taxpayers.
Duncan?
So through your worship, yeah, it's a united approach through the Fire Chiefs Association. Emergency Management BC has provided the funding to the Fire Chiefs Association, and now they're just gathering all of that information fire-wise on behalf of the Fire Chiefs Association. They're going to the RDs, they're going to the municipalities. Unfortunately, we didn't actually receive this letter until the RD sent it to us, and they really sent it to us saying, do you have comments, because we'd like to include them with ours. But really, they're going out and just polling all of the local governments and asking them how it's working and what our concerns are, so that they can centralize that information and submit it to the province to say, you know, hey, we need to increase funding, or hey, there's a better way to approach this. And so they're the united approach that I think you're talking about.
Yep.
To get consistency provincially, I mean, some municipalities probably don't provide this service.
Correct.
You know, maybe they've got volunteer fire departments or whatever. So to get some consistency provincially, I think that should be the message. The costs would be associated with that, but you know, if you happen to have a wreck someplace where there is no coverage, you're kind of on your own, eh?
Yeah, and there's two other components to me in here as well. And so the volunteer department, so we get, our guys go out on a call, our staff, and they get $347 back from the province for that call out, and we got to call in our back shift, so it costs us money, we subsidize. A volunteer department who send their staff out, and they do in certain areas. I think Taylor have a volunteer. So that's pure revenue for them because they're not paying their members, so there's a difference that way. So there may be a different view of how the province pays it to us versus them. But the other piece that, to me, that I worry about for our staff going out there is to attend these traumatic events that they're getting to, and fire training and going to put out a house fire or a building fire carries its own trauma and its own stuff, but I worry about our folks getting exposed to stuff that all of a sudden they're not they're impacted in such a negative way that it causes them to have to leave work and things. So I worry about that for our members, and think that that's another issue we should be, I think, in consideration for sending our staff out there on some of these horrific events. So I think there's a need for a consistent approach to it, but there's some other aspects to it as well besides financial to me. Duncan, go ahead and then
So just a stat really quickly. 2017, we attended 109 MVIs, and 34 were within the city limits, 75 out on the highways.
And there's also within our fire protection agreement is our legally described area that we have to go to, but we don't have to go outside of that. Councillor Schumann?
Yeah, so I would move that, I would make a motion that we send in this questionnaire, fill out and send in this questionnaire, and add any other information that might be of use to this group.
Thank you. Seconded? Councillor Parslow, discussion? And we'll send a CC to the RD, but we're going to respond direct.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 6-4, we have a letter from Jeremy Linklater in regards to the Dawson Creek Music Festival. He's planning again this year and requesting some additional stuff. Councillor Rogers?
Yeah, I move that we grant his request. Say, when I was talking to Jeremy and we were talking about him sending in the letter and stuff like that, it's the same ask as what it was last year. Not a whole lot's changing. Same old, same old.
Sure. Thank you. Second to Councillor McFadden. Discussion? Councillor Schumann?
So I noticed that they're requesting the closure of 107th. So does that, like, I'm wondering about those people that live on 107th. Do they just not have access to their houses for that day, or through the back alley, or how does that work?
Yeah, they've done it before, where they've just closed it off, and they do have people that'll move the barricade if somebody needs in.
Local traffic.
It's just that, it's just local.
Duncan?
So just one note through your worship, this is a busy weekend. We do have the car show that weekend. We also have the DC Triathlon happening that weekend, so we'll provide whatever barricades we can, but I expect we'll have them all out that weekend.
Busy weekend.
Thank you. Further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 6.5, we have a letter from the Nowakan Friendship Center regarding a request to use Kin Park for their archery practice. Councillor Parslow.
I would like us to grant permission.
Thank you.
So
Seconded?
move.
Councillor McFadden, discussion? Duncan?
So through your worship, through the charter, we have the ability through our bylaws to regulate bows, arrows, firearms, and we actually have a parks bylaw later on in this agenda suggesting that we control bow and arrow within the parks. It appears through follow-up that they're using some pretty light, recurve bows. They're not using compound bows, and they have some safety netting.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Well, I was looked at those questions, and £60 netting. I think it should be secure. I'd like to see our parts used for things. I've seen other parts in other communities where you see people using these things. I'm not sure I've seen the netting at these other communities, but I think we're secure with what they're planning.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 6.6, we have an email from Carol Rood, Treasurer of the Mile Zero Cruisers, requesting the use of 2 vacant city lots for the 2018 summer cruise. Councillor Wilbur?
I'd like to move that we grant their request.
Thank you.
Car show
We'll
weekend.
work with administration to identify those 2 lots. Seconded, Councillor Schumann. Discussion?
I like it. It's the old Dawson and the old twins.
Yeah.
We all know where that is. You know what? They put a lot of work into this, and it's always great to support them. And it's another great free family event, and we're always packed on Sundays. So
We identified this as part of the sports tourism strategy as one of the really important events. So, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 6.7, we have a letter from Jeanette Farrar Kalipi, President of the Philippine community at Dawson Creek, requesting fly the Philippine flag at City Hall. Councillor Parslow?
I'd like to move that we grant permission for the flying of the Philippine flag.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Schumann. Discussion? The mayor has a Philippine shirt to wear that day. They brought me in a large. There's a difference between, I think, how that large and my large. So it might look like
XXXL Filipino
it
shirt.
might be a little.
No flexing.
Gonna go on an extreme diet for a couple of days.
Be like a little
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 6.8.
so
we just want to see you.
Letter from Jessica Kula, Manager of Fundraising and Events for the Dawson Creek Hospital Foundation, requesting some support for their charity golf tournament coming up. We have our some swag within our tickle trunk. So, motion to provide
Prize.
some prize for the golf.
Sure.
Councillor Schumann, moved, seconded. Councillor Wilbur, discussion. I think we have some coffee cups and I think maybe a putter or something. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So we'll take a 7-minute recess. Is that sufficient?
Sure.
Washroom. Our agenda at item 7, reports. 7.1, we have report 18083 from the Director of Corporate Administration regarding NDIT application.
Go ahead.
Apparently I'm getting pointed at.
You're the NDIT boy.
Move that report number 18-083 from the Director of Corporate Administration regarding the 2018 Encana Events Center capital projects be received. Further, that Dawson Creek City Council support the following applications to Northern Development Initiative Trust. Number 1, community halls and recreation facility grants of up to $50,000 of the proposed $430,000 budget for the Encana Event Center Public Good Future Space. Number 2, community halls and recreation facilities grant of up to $50,000 for the proposed $70,000 budget for the Encana Events Center concourse curtains.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Schumann, discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried.
Yay. More money.
Yeah, because we would vote against that.
7.2, we have report 18096 from the General Manager of Community Development Services regarding proposals for the 2018-12 Michaels subdivision design. Councillor Jabekov?
Move that report number 18-096 from the General Manager of Development Services, request for proposals 2018-12, Michaels Subdivision Urbanization Design be received. Further, that Council award RFP 2018-12 to Urban Systems for the contract price of $152,300, plus applicable taxes to be funded through the water and sewer utility.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Rogers, discussion? Councillor Jabekov?
Just a question on, is there a deadline to get that done this summer, or?
Through your worship. Kevin, what was the timeline? Do you remember?
Yeah, so through your worship, I believe the timeline was to have enough design completed by budget that we'll be able to have those discussions, but a final detailed design won't be done until the new year. But we'll be in a position that we can have budget discussions this fall.
Thank you. Any further discussion? So this is the first stage, really, in that discussion we had in budget time about getting moving on the Michael subdivision, the properties and development east of 8th Street on 113th, 14, 15, and getting them service lots, water, sewer, and ultimately pave them so that they are functioning, current, state-of-the-art developments that we can market, and those residents and those businesses that are down there have appropriate access with future development. So it's a really, I think, a positive step forward. Further discussion? Further comments? Are you ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 8, bylaws. 8.1, we have report 18073 from the Parks and Facilities Manager regarding Parks Bylaw number 4371, 2018. Councillor Wilbur?
I'll move that report number 18-073 from the Parks and Facilities Manager regarding Parks Bylaw number 4371, 2018 be received. Further, that the Parks Bylaw number 4371, 2018 be given first 3 readings.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Schumann. Discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 9, Mayor's Business. And so kick off. We had, as always, the kids were in kindergarten 1 from Eco Frank Ross, and they loaded the mayor with questions, and but it was really good. And again, really good participation, I think, in our community from schools that are interested in coming and touring and meeting and seeing our city council and how we operate and function. And it was, again, a real good hour or so to participate with. Last week I did an interview on CBC News regarding the new Northern bus service that started last week, and so the schedule is out. Pick it up at the co-op in Dawson Creek, and it heads north to Fort Nelson. 1 day a week we get the service, and I believe it's up on Tuesdays. But the schedule is there and it's available. I think it's a $35 bus trip from Dawson Creek to Fort Nelson. And then southbound would be, I would assume, on Wednesday. But the schedule's there. It's filling a void that was created when Greyhound has left. We have had further discussions, and we'll continue to meet with the Ministry of Transportation. When I was down there a month ago, we talked about trying to facilitate and help facilitate a long-term private sector to step in and try to make this a viable area and route. And I think not only passenger service but freight is kind of the one. And Greyhound are still continuing their freight service, but to me the way you make a passenger model work, it's got to have that freight as part of it. And I had some discussions with a couple of private operators, private carriers that are in the business. There's lots of them here with the shuttle services and the diversified with moving folks around. So I've engaged with them and started that, and I'm going to try to continue to coordinate that on behalf of our private sector with the Minister of Transportation to see if there's some type of way to build a long-term model that might be a subsidized model for 2 or 3 or 4 years until it can be fully either fully functioning on its own or realizing it has to be a subsidized model, but try to facilitate a long-term result to it.
Your Worship, if I can
Yeah.
add to that too, the current service we have is only planned for 1 year, so
Yeah.
it's not a long-term sustainable plan, it's just a 1-year plan. So it's good to have that conversation with private organizations because it's not a long-term plan, it's a 1-year plan.
And for folks that are coming in for any other purpose, if you think about somebody coming from Fort Nelson down to Fort St. John or Dawson or Prince George, you only got it once a week, so you're going to be in a community for a week, paying hotels and meals if you're only coming down for a short period of time for a specific need. So it's a model and it's filling a void, but we got to find a long-term solution to it. You know, last 2 weeks ago, after NCLGA, and I toured the Fort Nelson First Nations, and I was really impressed with their community and what they've done in building infrastructure. We hosted the SOTO about 3 weeks ago and had a really great day with them, council to council, and touring infrastructure, touring our community and looking for ways to build partnerships in the long term that would benefit us both in terms of health, education, and economic opportunities. So when I was at NCLGA, I was able to meet the chief and the councillors, and I've been trying to get to them to do a presentation to them as well on that same vein about health, education, economic opportunities. They extended the invitation to me. I went up last Tuesday and did a presentation to them, talked about how important that health is to us. The hospital, as Emily Bernier talked about, that's an important facility for them. Education and college and trades training and the economic. And so when we had the urban systems here last fall and they did that presentation for us on the urban economic zones, and so Fort Nelson First Nations are one of the largest landholders on the Vancouver Island. They've got a huge development that they're working on down there, and so we talked about the common benefits of working together to build those economic opportunities for them and for us, and they're very interested in it, and so I'm going to follow that up. I'm going to meet with Urban Systems again and bring them in to see if we can help to formulate a relationship document and then start to go to work with them and SOTO on feasibility studies of some of them economic opportunities. And they're very interested in it, and I think we're only stronger to be able to be working together with our neighbors in regards to building those initiatives. And certainly, as I say, it starts from that common branch to me of health and education, because those are important no matter what community you live in. But the economic ones, I think, can't be understated. And when Urban Systems did that presentation to us and how we can work together and build an urban economic zones with them in partnership, creates additional opportunities for them and for us and our communities and our residents. Any questions on that? I didn't know I could drive to Fort Nelson and back in a day.
Congratulations on driving to Fort
But I've had some of my best sleeps driving to Edmonton, so.
That road is pretty similar.
Yeah, it was good. Tim Hortons Camp Day was mentioned earlier by Councillor Wilbur, that somewhere at the Alaska Avenue, and I was doing coffee at Tim Hortons on 8th Street, and I apologize to anybody that got more than a double-double, because it ain't that easy. Some might got a triple-triple. Buttons are easy to double push. Anyway, thanks, a great cause, and I really appreciate the community in terms of what they do to go out and support Tim Hortons Camp Day and providing opportunities for kids to go to camp.
And nobody thought you got a new job? Several people thought I got a new job when I was at the drive.
It was pretty obvious I didn't have a new job. Last week I had a meeting with the folks, the CEO of United Way and the United Tour. We're in Dawson Creek and doing some stuff, and really reached out and talked about how they'd really like to build the presence and opportunities of United Way in our community. people need, I think, I really wasn't, there wasn't clarity in my eyes in this, but money that are raised in our community by United Way or stay in our community. And we need to find a way to, we got to have a local representative, and I'm going to go to work on that because we don't have somebody as a local representative on United Way providing that feedback into the organization on the money collected for different causes. Success by Six is an example of a United Way funded organization, and so there's all kinds of things that go on in our community that we need to try to make sure we provide that focus to them for that organization for funds that are generated within the community. So it was a good hour to spend with them. Last week we announced the partnership agreement with the City of Dawson Creek and Spectra and Hockey Canada, and have now a 5-year agreement to host major international events at the Encana Event Center with Hockey Canada. It's a kind of a historic event, a historic agreement that we have with Hockey Canada, that first of its kind. Kicks off 5 years of major events that we will be able to look forward to host in the fall of each year, or 4 out of 5 years with Hockey Canada. It's going to start this fall with the women's national team are going to be here and kick that training camp off for a week in our community. They're going to play some exhibition games with our junior team, bring that legacy back in and continue to build upon that for kids in our communities and region for sport of hockey and girls hockey and female hockey, and then events like the World Under 17 that were really significant for us and demonstrating how important hosting those can be to our economic well-being and diversification. Events like the World Sledge, the Paralympics, the National World Junior A Challenge, World Junior A Championships are all examples of major events that we could host and partner with, although those haven't been formally announced. We have the venue, we have the volunteers, we have the sponsors locally and corporately that help us to be able to deliver on these, and I think it was just really amazing, and really appreciate the work of Global and Ryan and Barry and staff and administration and all the volunteers in the community that have allowed us to put this together and have a really very cool opportunity for the next number of years to be able to host some pretty significant events in our community and other communities. I know I've been getting reach outs from other communities wondering what we're doing and how we were doing it, so it was very good. Obviously, as was mentioned earlier by our delegation, we had the Rotary Lake public meeting last week and or the week before, I can't remember, but week before, and so it was really well attended, really great participation feedback, and that was the purpose of it. We're now at the stage where we begin to try to give direction to administration in terms of what and how we see moving forward with that facility. So we had 2 hours of, for those that weren't there, folks coming forward and giving their input into the Rotary Lake, the passion of the facility is evidenced by folks that were there and giving their input into it. And to me, that's what we should be doing in every opportunity where we seek and look for ways to engage the community. I wish we get that many people out to our budget meetings and things like that, but it was really well attended and really good discussion for the most part in terms of people having that passion for their community and a facility and moving it forward. So, Councillor Wilbur, you had a question?
Yeah, so I wasn't able to attend because I was meeting with the ministers and the opposition in Victoria, but there was a young lady that actually filmed it from beginning to end on Facebook, so I was able to see it and hear the comments and the conversation. So, and I don't know who she was, but I just want to say thank you for doing that, because I was able to hear what the community had to say and feel that passion for him. So I appreciate whoever that was. Thank you for recording it so that we could watch it live through Facebook.
New Harvest were there as well, and they filmed it and put it on our website. So anybody that didn't get a chance to see it, it's there and it's available to anybody that wanted to see it. And
excellent.
It was really well done. So I want to just update Council really quickly on one other item that I forgot to put on the agenda, and that's I'm planning a trip to Calgary in 2 weeks. Next week. I got 3 days down there, and I'm going to be meeting with all of the major upstream companies that are, as we anticipate, LNG Canada and their announcement, and the midstream processing, TransCanada, Pembina, Verizon, ARC, Tourmaline, Encana, Progress, I don't know who all I'm meeting with, but I got 2 or 3 full days of stuff. And just wanted to give you guys an update that I've got that planned. It's been a while since I've been there, and I've got a couple of topics for them that I want to make sure we broach as we anticipate the development of the announcement this fall from LNG Canada, and just for your guys' information. We had a request from QP. Our Stephanie was in and made a request under delegations under 2.4, support for Labor Day celebration. Duncan, can you give us a bit of a update on what this is?
Sure. So through your worship, it's use of Kin Park Bowl, the water station, the city bouncy castles, and for the city to promote the event, I believe was the ask. The city does have some bouncy castles that we use internally, so you wouldn't require sponsorship. You could grant use of those. And we've checked the date as far as Kin Park Bowl, and it doesn't appear that anybody else has any activities at that time booked.
Okay. Councillor Schumann?
I move that we support the request and give them what they need to put on this fabulous event.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Wilbert. Discussion? Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now we have the delegation from the Rotary Club that were in attendance requesting a letter of support under item 2.5. We also have the referred motion from Rotary Lake that we have to deal with under 9.2, and so I'm going to go to council because one will impact the other referred motion, and it is a referred motion that's on the floor, that has been referred to be lifted back, and so I don't want to get it clunky that if we deal with one, it impacts the other. So I'm seeking council's, do you want to deal with 9.2 before we deal with the letter of support? Councillor Parslow.
Well, we also have a delegation in camera which is linked to this as well.
Well,
so I was wondering if both these items should be more properly dealt with after we've engaged with that delegation and then deal with these matters in open.
So we need to table these two, adjourn these two, or table these two until after the end of our open meeting. Brenda?
Yeah, through your worship, if you were wanting to deal with this today, after the closed meeting, you could table the motion.
Just table these until after at the end of our open.
Correct.
Okay. Councillor Javecka?
This request from the Rotary for a letter of support, they're going as an individual group to Victoria with a letter. It's a separate issue altogether as far as I'm concerned. I think we need to deal with it now so that they, have direction and can carry on with their project. So I'd like to make a motion that we provide them a letter of support, and I don't think this interferes with the motion that's deferred.
The other one does say we're going to move it to a recreational, like a water park and things, and so it's a different outcome that's being sought than just the letter of support saying we want the province to reopen and just move it forward without the lake. So, but I'm offering an opinion here. So we have a motion on the floor.
But your worship,
so I've got a motion moved. I need to have it seconded before we can discuss it.
can I ask point of order though? Councillor Parslow put forward about tabling, which we discussed tabling these two until after. Doesn't that take precedent over a motion?
We didn't.
I don't believe there was a motion.
It was,
Okay,
it was a suggestion.
Thank you.
So I have a motion to send a letter of support to the Rotary Club letter. So I need a seconder for that. Councillor Parslow? Discussion. Councillor Rogers?
Well, I can't support something that I haven't even actually had time to read. I read it, little bits of it as I was when I first got it when I got here, and I've kind of snuck and read a couple of paragraphs during delegations, but I had noticed a whole bunch of things that are in here that are actually wrong, or maybe I could be corrected. Due to the closure of the Rotary Lake, they forgot about Tumba Ridge, they forgot about the regional district. And then Rotary Lake is utilized around 3 months out of the year due to various factors such as temperature and rain. So it might be open, but it's not utilized because of the weather and everything else. And then the community recently spent $300,000 on it. I don't even know if that's accurate because when we were going through that, because the city contributed about $100,000 to that project. And I don't ever remember seeing the number of $300,000, not including work and volunteer hours. So there's a few things like without, if it were to have been tabled, I would have had a chance to read it and digest a little bit more. But as of right now, I haven't read it.
Okay, so I got.
Might have satisfied.
All right. So I got Councillor Schumann, then Councillor Javetkov, then Councillor Parslow.
Yeah, I'm not going to support it either. I thought that we would hold off on this until we had further discussions around the table on other ideas or whatever it is that the delegation is bringing to us in camera. I'm not prepared to support it.
A little nervous here about suggesting we have a delegation enclosed.
Yeah.
Through your worship, the topic is okay to
Okay,
discuss.
all right,
It's just
good.
not the details.
Thank you. Councillor Javetkov and Councillor Parslow.
So I'll read some notes I made there just for some perspective. Rotary Lake, or man-made lake as the locals call it, has been the most popular destination for the enjoyment of families of all walks of life and economic status on the few hot summer days that we have in Dawson Creek. And that was evident from the meeting that we had, the public meeting. All of the discussion so far has been based on an assumption that it is a foregone conclusion that the Order in Council designating Rotary Lake as a lake has been or will be rescinded. This has not happened. It is currently still designated as a lake. The Order in Council is still in place. The Dawson Creek Rotary Club recognizes the value of Rotary Lake for its quality of life value for the citizens of the South Peace. And the Rotary Club is concerned that because of the efforts of Northern Health, that the Order in Council may be rescinded. So that's why they're taking this project on. So the Rotary Club will make presentation to the provincial government to protect the status of Rotary Lake. And I think the Mayor and Council appreciate the quality of life is highly important to local citizens, and that the Rotary Club of Dawson Creek will work hard to provide this valuable amenity and to continue providing it. So I think we need to give them a letter of support because the lake has not been redesignated to a pool yet. I think all of the discussion, because of the pressure from Northern Health, has been based on the assumption that it will be designated as a pool. I think this is a political issue. It was demonstrated as a political issue back in Jack Weisgerber's days, and I think we have to allow Rotary Club to follow this process through.
Councillor Parslow.
Well, I agree with what Councillor Javetkov says, and I seconded the motion because, with some reluctance, because of I'm concerned about procedure, as Councillor Wilbur's just alluded to. But I wanted to make sure that, in my view, I agree completely with the summary given by Councillor Javetkov. However, I'm just concerned about our procedures here. I wanted, I didn't want it just to, if there's no motion, nothing happens. So I'm concerned about procedures, but I support the letter and the Rotary Club.
Procedures about today?
Sorry,
About the meeting?
sorry about the fact that we have this matter in camera, which
okay.
we need to listen to. We have this deferred thing which we need to deal with about the sequence.
Yeah, okay.
And so I guess I'm looking for
Sure.
guidance about this because I didn't want this letter just to die I wanted Councillor Javatov to have the opportunity of giving voice, which I concur with. And yet I believe we need to go into in camera. So I've seconded this, but I'm indicating that I think that we need to suspend voting on it until we've dealt with things in a different way.
And the only way that happens is if it gets tabled. So.
Yeah.
Councillor Roger?
Well, the only thing I want to say is, okay, if council supports this letter, what does that mean? Does that mean that we support the opening, or we support the opening of Rotary Lake as it is right now, or we are supporting a significant investment of up to $500,000 into Rotary Lake? I'm not sure. Is there a dollar value that is going to be attached to this? Because I didn't see one on the cost of reopening it as a lake, if that's what happens. I'm just not 100% sure.
So, so 2 or 3 comments for me, and we held a public meeting, and it was very, very well attended. And we've got 4 or 5 options that council could consider and move forward with in terms of providing that direction by majority to administration in terms of what are our next steps. You fight the order, you close the facility, you open it as a full-fledged pool under pool regulations, you have a partial exemption that Northern Health done, but there is a closure order under the public health officer. And so, to me, until when we say we're sending a letter of support, and I'm completely good with the Rotary Club sending a letter to the Premier or to anyone else voicing their opinions and concerns about it. The issue for me is if we send a letter of support to it, in summary, we support, our request is threefold that we're supporting. We believe our exemption from pool regulations should be maintained as is. 1. 2, we should receive permission to install engineered solutions that deal with both suction as well as entrapment issues to ensure safety of death from vandalism of all the drain. And then 3, that the order by Northern Health should be removed as they do not have the authority to treat Rotary Lake as a pool. And so, 1, the public health officer has authority to deal with health hazards. So they do, forget about pool lake regulations, forget about lake regulations. They have the authority to make an order, and that's what they've done. And so my concern is twofold. If we send a letter of support that we're supporting those 3 recommendations, it removes one of the options that we talked to the public about, and that is a partial exemption. Because we're not saying we're supporting a public partial exemption here, and if we say we want the entire exemption from the pool regulation to be maintained as is, the Premier is going to come back with 2 things. Thank you for your letter, I believe, my opinion. Thank you for your letter. Appreciate your input. We're going to refer it to the Minister of Health for his direction, and he's going to get a briefing note. He's going to get it from his staff. And so that could eliminate the option of a partial exemption from the options that we have. And so we haven't given direction to administration in terms of what we want to do, but by sending a letter of support to these 3 requests, we really are saying here's what we want in terms of direction to administration. So before I go to Councillor Schumann-Duncan, you had your hand up.
I didn't have my hand up, but no,
earlier I thought you had.
No, I was just going to confirm the request is threefold. You've read that out.
Yeah. Councillor Schumann.
Yeah, and so that was my concern about moving forward with this before we have the big discussion, before we have other things later on in our agenda. I feel like it's jumping the gun a little bit if we say we're going to send a letter of support to go along with this letter, which, I mean, I have no problem with the Rotary Club sending this letter either. I just feel like if we send a letter of support, then we're tying our hands up a little bit, and it does take options off the table then. And I feel like we need to have the big discussion before we support this one option.
Councillor Javetko.
You know, whatever direction we take, this is step 1. the order in council designating it as a lake is step one. If that's rescinded, it puts a whole different ball game in place here, because then it will be designated as a pool. So until we confirm that the government will or will not designate, retain the designation as a lake, we're making assumptions. You know, the comments from Northern Health, and I agree, government employees have the authority to make, to give direction and to make rules and all this stuff. But we're relying on the opinion of one government employee that provided a ruling, and that's not necessarily valid. We can't test it. We can't test those directives until we know that this will be retained as a lake. If it's retained as a lake, then we can push about the ruling. If it's going to be rescinded and changed to a pool, then it just puts a whole different flavor on the issue. I think this has to be step one. We've got to establish the fact that it's either going to be retained as a lake or not before we can move on with anything. You know, I don't think that we can follow through on anything unless we throw in the towel now and say, okay, well, we assume that it's going to be a pool and we have no, you know, we can't do anything about these orders.
And for me, we had a public meeting with 200 people. I'm up there giving options, and one of them was a partial exemption. And this council hasn't given that direction. My belief is when we send a letter of support to these three, it would be difficult for us then to go back to Northern Health through the Ministry of Health to say we want to pursue this if that's what this council decides. I'm saying, from my opinion, these three requests eliminate the option of us providing another option to administration in the direction of the facility. And we made that commitment to a public hearing, into a public engagement process, and that's all I'm saying is, I think that's my concern. So I got Councillor Javetkov, or Parslow, Javetkov, and then Wilbur.
Yes, just procedurally, can I make a motion to table this?
Yes.
Until after we've had our special meeting, brought back today?
Yep.
I would like to do that.
Motion to table needs a seconder and is non-debatable. Seconder, Wilbur, non-debatable. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. So we'll bring it back at the end of open. Thank you. And is that Mayor's business?
For your worship,
Yes?
item 9.2.
The library book, the books.
First of all,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I missed the library.
but also
I got to do 9-2.
yes.
Yeah. So I want to do the library first, and we had the library organization come to do that. Councillor Parslow?
Support their venture, yes.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Rogers. Discussion?
Any bylaw concerns?
Through your worship, we'll work with the library group on, they had asked specifically on how to mount those boxes. As you know, we had a bus shelter tipped over here not long ago, so we'll do our best to mount that.
Citing them for safety and all of that stuff, right?
Yeah, we'll work with the group.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 9.2, so we'll need a motion to table that until...
So move.
Councillor Javetkov, sorry, you had your hand up.
I was just wondering about the request from the group about the bridge on 102nd. That was a specific request.
Yes? So we'll deal with that one as well. Thank you. I want to do the deferred because we just need to table that till the end.
I'd like to move to table it until after a special.
Seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And the 102nd Avenue, Duncan?
So through your worship, the request was, I believe, replace 102nd with a bridge or immediate action, I believe was the request that we received. So I can just provide a quick update if that's okay first. So we are working through that flood mitigation piece. They are looking at that creek as a whole. There is an opportunity for staff to provide further direction to Ebb Water to focus on this area. and those ramifications of opening up that area and allowing more water through. I can confirm that the bridge on 17th Street has slightly higher capacity to let water through than the bridge on 102nd does after looking at it engineering.
The culvert's at 102nd.
Sorry, the culvert's at 102nd let slightly less water through than the bridge at 17th.
So basically, we've got the flood mitigation plan in place. We have then to begin the engineering, and I have reached out to the Federal Minister of Infrastructure because they've got that flood mitigation grant stuff available, and I am trying to get a meeting with him as soon as we can. Councillor Dvekov?
I'd like to make a motion that we proceed with the design for a bridge on 102nd Avenue, and I can speak to it if we get a seconder.
Okay. Seconded? Sure. Councillor Rogers, discussion?
So, obviously we can't build a bridge this year. There's not enough money and not enough time. But to get it on the agenda, on the budget for next year, and to proceed with applying for grants, we need a design to follow through with it. So a design, I don't know how much money, I don't think it's going to be much more than maybe 15,000 or...
Duncan?
Through your worship, it's usually a percentage of the overall project. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yes, through your worship, just basing it on 10th Street. When we did that project, we went out to RFP, and if I remember correctly, the design was around $250,000 plus or minus a little either side of that. So smaller bridge in that area, but I would say you'd want to allot probably a couple $100,000 because there will have to be some hydraulic studies and a few different things that are incorporated in that, just off the cuff.
200,000 sounds like a lot. 10th Street Bridge is quite a bit different than 102nd Avenue. So I guess my point is that we need a design before we can proceed with getting grants, and I would like to see us do something substantial here in the next budget year to replace that bridge. It's not like we're wondering if it's a blockage. There was a block this year, and this year wasn't an untypical freshet year. We had to put in pumps. I don't know what the cost of that was, but it was a panic thing. So I'd like to see us start something substantial on it.
Yeah, the only thing we don't know is what we do if we put that bridge into the downstream, and that's part of the flood mitigation plan, because when it was in the past, we did have areas down in that area that were impacted by it. So I don't know if that's the issue, right? We don't know what it does to the whole of the residents. That's the only question. Go ahead.
Well, when it's blocking the water, yeah, it's reducing the flow downstream. But when you put in these massive pumps and you're actually drawing water from up past the golf course, and it didn't do anything substantially downstream, that's a huge amount of water that you're actually adding to the flow. So just logically, thinking it through, I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Yeah, we added
The main principle of getting water through the city is to get it through as quickly as possible. That's why we have a bridge on 15th. That's why we have bridges on 10th and in Kin Park, and we've pushed pretty strongly to get a bridge on 8th Street.
We added about maybe 25 cubes a minute to those pumping. You're talking about a culvert adding about 300 or 400 cubes is what you would need to do to add it. So it's the capacity of what we allow through there that impacts the downstream. Now, we don't know that, and that's my only, I don't know that, and I'm not an expert. Councillor Parsons.
To staff here, through you, I'd like to know, when are we going to get, any idea when we're going to get our flood mitigation plan?
Duncan?
So through your worship, Kevin was on a conference call with Ebwater last week. We have sent them last meeting's discussion regarding 102nd, so they're gonna add some more information on that. But we're anticipating, Kevin, end of June was the original date. Has it been pushed a little bit? I know they were doing some work with the province earlier this last couple months.
So to receive a draft, we will by the end of June for staff to review, unless we add or change.
And my discussions with the federal guys will only be about saying, here's the issues for us. We're not coming with an engineered plan at this point, but we want to know that we have these issues in flood mitigation for our community, and we need to bring it forward to you for some grants that you guys have available. And would you be willing for us to get that fast tracked so that we can present it? So and that's exactly my discussions with them. Councillor Parsons?
So I'm wondering, to my mind, there's no harm if we table this to our July meeting, and then we might have the benefit of this flood plan and advice from staff. Is there? I don't see that tabling it until July is an unnecessary delay.
Well, I don't know if we would have to bring back the budget amounts and all that stuff. So, Duncan?
So through your worship, we have flood mitigation funding. We've utilized a portion of that. However, there's still approximately what Kevin identified. You'd be utilizing that fund if you were to see through. The recommendation would be to wait to see what those downstream impacts will be. We know that during 2016, 15th Street, there was some houses in that area that had water. And now we're talking about allowing more water through.
Would there be any advantage to pursuing what the engineered costs would be for us so that we can make a decision on that? Like if it is going to be 200 grand, where are we getting the money, and is it going to deplete it? Or can we get an estimate of what that engineered costs are, and then hopefully that would tailor into would just give us speed up 2 or 3 or 4 weeks of having the flood mitigation plan in place and then having those costs in place so that we get to then make a decision.
Sure. Through your worship, we can try and confirm some pricing. Usually it is about a percentage. It's a percentage of the overall project cost. I would also like to speak to Ebwater specifically and ensure that they address this crossing specifically. They were looking at the creek as a whole. They're looking at some of those large-scale strategies, but I would like to approach them on this area.
I guess I was just thinking more about, we're going to get their report in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and it's going to take 2 or 3 weeks to get an estimate of how much that engineered cost would be, and we might have them in coinciding time, and we can make a decision then to move it forward. Councillor Rogers?
Yeah, and just another thought. I guess if this does go through, and we say that, then you're going to have the people in Willowbrook coming in next, because there's that other culvert south on 17th Street that goes through Willowbrook there. So they'll be saying, oh, we need a bridge here now too. So that's what could possibly end up happening.
That's flood mitigation planning.
Yeah, that's right. And then the folks over on 108.
That's what we do.
Wait for that report.
So can I move that we table this discussion, although I don't want to negate what you're after, here from the point of view of getting some estimates either. If I just say table this, then this resolution is brought back at the July meeting, but if...
Yeah. Brenda?
Through your worship, just for procedure, the correct term is referred to a different meeting. Table is within the same meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So your motion is to refer?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Until a certain time.
Until the
To our
next.
July meeting of council.
But we don't meet till the mid-July, right?
Right.
Correct.
Okay. Motion is to refer to mid-July. All those in favor? Opposed? Opposed, Councillor Javetkov. It's carried. Set it for our delegations. Thank you. And we have the order. Sorry?
Can I just make another motion on that bridge? Can I make a motion to include it in the budget discussions for 2019 budget?
As a prioritized item for budget discussion?
To replace the crossing with the bridge.
Sure. Seconded, Councillor Parslow. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. You guys opposed? Or you? No. Thank you. Director of Corporate Administration, Rotary Lake referred motion, and we're tabling that. Councillor Parslow?
Yeah.
Councillor Wilbur? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Diary?
Nothing to update, your worship.
Consent calendar? Strategic priorities?
Oh, do you need something with that?
Yes, I do. Move consent, Councillor Parslow, seconded, Councillor Wilbur. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And strategic priorities?
Nothing to update, Your Worship.
Media. Austin? Thank you. Motion to recess to close. Councillor Parslow, second Councillor Rogers. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So we'll recess for 7 minutes. And I think the first one we'll deal with is the letter from Rotary, because the deferred one will hold it there. I get to make that decision.
Sure you do. Well, glad somebody made one.
We're going to bring back the letter from the Rotary Club asking council's consideration to send a letter of support to their letter. Councillor Parsons.
I would like to move that we send a letter of support to the...
Sorry, Brenda?
It's already on the floor.
That motion is already on the table.
Oh, sorry. Who's on?
Councillor Jeveka
I made it, you seconded it, remember?
Or
It was quite a while ago, but.
We're just,
So just a motion to lift it from the table.
So a motion to lift. Councillor Parslow, Councillor Jeveka, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. And the motion is that council support, council will send a letter of support for the Rotary letter dated June 7th. Discussion. Councillor Jeveka.
Well, I'd just like to reiterate, we had quite a bit of discussion on it already, but I think it's sort of step one in the process. We have to establish whether or not the province will support keeping the Order and Council in place or not, because that's going to determine, you know, what happens in the future with it.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Just, we're supporting this letter as is,
Yes?
just the way it's written.
We're sending a letter of support.
Yeah, that we're supporting
we're
them
supporting this.
sending a letter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Further discussion, further comments? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. And 9.2 is the referred, Rotary Lake referred motion, and that also was tabled to a further date. So, Councillor Parslow?
I move that we lift it from the table.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Wilbur, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And so...
I'd like to make a motion.
well, we got to vote on the one that's there.
Oh, I thought we did.
Oh, no, we got the motion now. And so now, I think honestly, we've provided direction in terms of what we're going to do. And I think, in my opinion, at this point, that motion is moot, not required until such time as we hear back.
Yeah, okay.
Now that's...
So should we defer it again, or just?
I think probably we just need to defer it until we hear back from the
Exactly.
province
That was the motion I was going to make.
in terms of...
Defer it until we heard back.
I was just reading your mind.
Oh, you're wonderful. What you just said 10 minutes ago is still alive in me.
So did Charlie make that as a deferral motion, or should I do
No,
that?
we're just going to need a deferral motion till we hear back from the printer.
So then I would defer, I would vote, or I would move
Make
that we
the
defer.
Thank you.
And
Councillor Parslow, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Any other business for council? Councillor Schumann?
So we seen there was a nice little sheet on the appeal process, et cetera, et cetera. Do we need to move forward with that, or are we just gonna put it all onto the Rotary Club to do it? Or are we gonna move forward also with a,
No, as part of our
The
letter,
appeal.
we'll put that in there.
we'll
That's right.
send the appeal in there as well then?
Well, I think the request to bring here is coming back to us. It's not coming back to some entity that doesn't have authority in there. It would come to the city. Okay.
So through your worship, I'm going to go back to the letter, and the summary of the request is they believe that the exemption from pool regulation should be maintained. This is going to the province. That they should receive permission to install the engineered solutions, and that the orders by Northern Health should be removed. This is going to the province. If you want to pursue something through Northern Health, that would be something separate.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
Well, it's not Northern Health that's going to lift the order. It's going to be the minister of health.
Yeah.
And so our decision point comes from the province,
Mhm.
from the minister, and it's coming back to the city of Dawson Creek because that's who's accountable.
Okay. I just,
Yeah, I agree with you, but the appeal process is to Northern Health, isn't it?
Eventually it will be.
Yeah, but
so we'll just wait. Okay.
Any other business for council? Motion to adjourn? Councilor Wilbur, Councilor Schumann, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Thanks a lot, you guys.